Welcome back to the Surround Sound podcast. I am your host, All Hunter Jr., the truth and not a rumor. So glad, once again, man, so glad that you guys made it to the new year, because there's a lot of people that did not make it to right now in the new year. Once again, for the next 2 weeks, we have dope interviews. One with comedian Brad Sativa, and two with the event planner, promoter extraordinaire, Miss Deja Shanice. We're going to really see what some of the things that Nashville has to offer on the entertainment side. Folks, I struggled with this sign of the times on whether to bring it to the masses or not, because I didn't see where I could win for real. I didn't see where I would really, for lack of a better term, I just didn't see where I could win. Is it true what I'm about to say? Yes. Well, I guess I have to say it then. That's what the Most High wants me to do. The topic for this sign of the times is accountability. And no doubt the topic started and came from this R. Kelly docuseries that we saw this weekend on Lifetime. Understand this. Culturally, R. Kelly is guilty if those things happen. He's culturally guilty. What I am begging for us to look at is not his guilt or innocence, but the historical context around what is happening. Because we're attempting to quantify something. We're attempting to put parameters on something that is shapeless. On top of that, we're trying to put a 21st century mindset around something that historically has not been the case. Case in point. With this R. Kelly situation, one thing that's always been interesting to me is what is considered is what is considered accountable, and it stems from my church upbringing. I always wondered. I was like, okay, if I'm not supposed to have sex till I get married, then why did the Most High give me the ability to have sex some 10, possibly 15, 20 years before I even get to where I'm going to get married? That was a 20th century thought process. Put a pin right there, and because we're coming back to that. The fact that I thought that I was not going to get married to possibly 10, 20 years later is a 20th century thought process. My father's father, they didn't think that they were going to get married 20 years later. When I was like 12, 13. That's when I really started liking girls. 6th grade. They didn't think that they were going to get married 10, 20, 30 years later. Let's think about that. So, with that being the case, I started to think, I got introduced to Jewish culture. And I put quotes on that. When I say I got introduced, I just read certain things about Jewish culture. And that's when I saw or understood what a bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah is. Essentially, what that is a coming of age ceremony where children are now have reached the age of accountability and now are considered adults. In other cultures, you might have to go through certain tests, certain things of this nature to see if you are indeed a man or a woman. And of course, if you fail the test, then you're gonna stay with the kids. And if you're not, then you have now they're gonna you've risen to another level of accountability. One thing we have to remember there is that you either are or are not. It's a yes or a no. It's a black or white. The light is on, the light is off. There's no gray area there. Adolescence is our 20th and 21st century gray area to a subject that never had one. With that being said, the first account of adolescence, or that word being used, didn't come to the 15th century. It really gained steam in America and in Europe in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. However, in 1904, the first president of the American Psychological Association, G. Stanley Hall, was credited with discovering adolescence. This 10-year period from about 10 to 19 came about in 1904. And it was influenced by the social situations of the day. Most namely, child labor. Well, child labor came about 20 years later. In 1924, the government passed the child labor law. I said those two things to say this. What we think of in the 21st century of people that are from 10 to 19, as we think of them now, we think of them as kids. But historically, they were not considered as such. Now, with that being said, also, I had a preacher. And he preached one day that essentially the human body has not changed since the beginning of time. Yes, I'm sure we've gotten hairier or we've gotten less hairy, depending on the temperature, depending on the climate. But our genetic makeup basically is the same. So, way back when, people were hitting puberty at essentially the same time. Their 12th, 13th, 14th year on the planet. I said that to say this. The age of accountability, as we see it in this country, as we see it in this state and bordering states, isn't what we think it is. I was researching what is and what is not rape and what is statutory rape. Excuse my language, that shit is blurry. it's a 4-year window, but then at the same time, it's not. Like, it's consensual sex, but then it's not consensual. Like, it's very weird. Even so, this is what I wonder. At my age, if I talk to someone that is 20, 21, 22, it's all right. But there's like a 17-year age gap. But if a person talks to another person and they happen to be a teenager and they happen to be early to mid-20s, it's not all right. With that being said, once again, let me reiterate. Culturally and by law, R. Kelly is guilty if he did what everyone thinks that he did. And in no way, shape, or form am I saying that he is innocent. What I do see is a guy that's from Cabrini Green, the south side of Chicago. And what he was doing amounted to pimping. It just happened to be that the women were at an age that us as adults in the 21st century see as wrong. All I want to do is shed light on why we see it's wrong. The government has passed a law, state, federal, have passed a law to say it is wrong. Well, this is also the same country that passed prohibition laws, which said alcohol was wrong, and presently say that they don't know how it feels on the sale of cannabis, weed. This is also the same country that, for all intents and purposes, said that people that look like me are second-class citizens. I said that to say this. We shouldn't always think that the government is the correct way to go about our morality. Let's leave that alone if we're thinking that the government is a correct indicator of where we should place our morals, because it's ever changing. Lastly, something I want to say. The thought was that R. Kelly wed Aaliyah. In the irony of all ironies, I want you to look up Aaliyah's name. If you take off the first A and look up Aaliyah, it literally means coming of age. Wow. For Troy, for Matasha, and everyone here at the Surround Sound Podcast, in the words of Jerry Springer, be good to yourself and each other. For everybody on Facebook and Instagram, you guys just don't know how tough that was. Because in no way, shape, or form am I a pedophiliac and don't side with them at all. I know this because I've always dated older women. But then I had to think about who they were in this situation. Were they the R. Kelly and I Aaliyah? But every older woman I've ever talked to always said that I was mature for my age. Could Aaliyah have been mature for her age? With the historical context, a culture would say that she was an adult. But in America, we don't. But by law, If R. Kelly wed her or had sexual intercourse with her, he's wrong and he should go to jail. But what is accountability? The girl literally left school. It was a girl on the surviving R. Kelly. She literally left school. Not left school. She ditched school. Big difference. She ditched school, went to where R. Kelly was, or went to the courthouse and showed support for him. Later on, things happened that by law shouldn't have. He should be held accountable. She should be held accountable. The parents should be held accountable. Everybody involved should be held accountable. In my estimation, in this most humble estimation, either everybody is right or everybody is wrong. This thought that at a certain age you can and cannot form consent is one of the most retarded things that I've ever heard. And it is because I come across women that are my age that are still dumb as a box of rocks. The legal driving age is what? 18 now? It was 16 when I was growing up. It's people that are my age that still can't drive. It's people that can buy liquor now that still shouldn't drink. All I'm saying is, what we have, our preconceived notion of what is and what is not right, should be looked at a little harder. Our thought process on what age is and is not deserves to be looked at a little more keenly. Because if it had not been for the child labor law of 1924 and G. Stanley Hall in 1904, what we think of as adolescence right now, it wouldn't even be there. And that was just last century. That was just in the 1900s. That was just in the 20th century. So we just need to have before we start casting aspersions upon people, let's have an understanding, because if that preacher was right, our bodies have not changed. And Jews have been doing bar and bat mitzvahs since biblical times. If all those things are right, what make us think in the 21st century that now it's going to be this seismic change and that everything that happened before us is wrong? That still doesn't mean that R. Kelly is now innocent. What it does mean is maybe we need to take a look at what we think is right and what we think is wrong. Hey, folks, I would really appreciate it if you would share this with as many of your friends in different groups or whatever. If you don't, hey, I get it. I really do. But that's what I'm here for. I ain't gonna even lie to y'all. I'm here to tell the truth. And I hope I have pissed off each side. Because if I pissed off each side, then that means I told the truth. And that's what that's where I'm holding myself to. That's the thought process I'm holding myself to. I appreciate everyone for tuning in to the Surround Sound Podcast. You can download the show from iTunes and the iHeartRadio app.